Welcome to episode 2 of Shane Talks. It's the sequel, the second episode. We're here to talk more movies and have a really fun and good time. I appreciate you coming back. I've got a really good group of guys with me today that we're going to talk about sequels with. My buddy Chris Ward is a drinking buddy of mine. I got Dave Maier, who was one of my first bosses when I worked at a movie theater. Brandon Simpson's another drinking friend of mine who's an uber nerd. Jason Maier is my cohort in putting all this stuff together, and my sidekick that kind of pushes me to make sure I do stuff like this. And Jason Richardson is back. He was in the first episode and was my boss at the same movie theater with Dave Maier. The first topic, as far as we go with sequels, we need to address the fact that within the last week, Jason Richardson made a rather disparaging post on Facebook about Back to the Future Part 2. It got to me and it upset me because I personally hold Back to the Future 2 as one of the best sequels and one of my favorite sequels
of the year
ever. But I will also throw this out there that I may be 9-year-old biased about that.
There we go.
Because
truth comes out.
This movie hit me at 9 years old and showed me a future of 2015. It showed me an alternate 1985. And then it showed me the first movie again from a different perspective. And as a 9-year-old, those blew my mind from a storytelling standpoint.
Can't understand why you like non-linear movies that involve time travel or alternate dimensions. Right?
So literally every storytelling thing that I've carried with me throughout my life is a result of Back to the Future 2's influence on 9-year-old me. So, Jason, I want to know what was so wrong with Back to the Future 2?
Okay, so let's go back to 1989.
Uh-huh.
At the time, it was hype. It was dope. It was, the special effects were like, wow, the hoverboard. Oh my God, is that what the future looks like? Wow, this is cool. Oh my God, this movie is confusing as hell. You got to really keep track. Okay, what's going on? They're going back and forth, but it's still pretty cool, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like the movie back in 1989.
Okay.
It still did not have the heart of the original.
It does not.
But
I will 100% agree with you. The first movie is a better movie.
As a sequel, it was decent in 1989.
All right.
Even at the time, I think they failed with trying to hide that they couldn't really have Crispin Glover in the film, and so they faked it as much as possible.
Sure.
And then the fact that they replaced Jennifer with Elizabeth Shue, which was just way off.
I didn't even notice.
They could have just not even had the Jennifer character in the second one and played like they left her back in 1985 or something. I don't know. It just
the only problem with your theory is the fact that they literally shot the end of the first movie with her getting in the DeLorean. You really can't cut her out when she's already in the DeLorean when it goes to the future.
Right, but when they came back, I don't know. They could have
you mean when they came back to 1985 and then you don't ever see her again for the rest of the movie?
Something, or like they get to the future and it's just Marty and Doc, and they're like, sorry, we had to take Jennifer back because of something, or I don't know. It was just, I hate when they replace the character with a different actress and they look completely off from the original per se.
Well, here would be my argument to that. The girl, Claudia Wells, was maybe in 3 or 4 minutes of screen time in the first movie. So I feel like what Brandon said, I don't think anybody noticed that they changed the actress.
I mean, I was like 5 years later before I realized that wasn't Elizabeth Shue. I was like, oh,
I totally noticed. I picked up on that stuff, but that was very minor. But the problem that I had is when I watched it just last week again, it was one of those things where I had literally not seen that movie since the 90s sometime. And so I didn't feel like it carried over through the years, and I didn't feel the same as what I did when I originally watched it back in 1989. And I thought that there were just a lot of bad lines. Some of the acting I thought was just horrible. It felt forced. But I do like the premise of it.
Mhm.
And I think that the second half of the movie, once Biff goes back to alter with the almanac, I think that's where it picks itself up and it's a solid movie.
So you didn't like all of the cheesy stuff that they threw into 2015, all of the like Steven Spielberg's son directing Jaws 19, or the Texaco Station, or the 80s Cafe, like that stuff.
They did predict the Cubs.
They got the Cubs.
They got the Cubs right.
It was fun stuff, but I just thought that like all the acting was just so over the top, and like the Biff character of the future was just annoyed the fuck out of me. Like, go back.
We can cuss on this. Okay, I was just making sure.
Yes.
Okay, good.
It's just so over the top, not even realistic per se, even though I know it's fantasy in general, but I didn't feel like the movie, I'll wrap up here. I didn't feel like the movie just didn't hold up from when it did back in 1989, but it's still a decent movie and I'd have it in my collection.
Okay.
I just it fell flat for me.
Wardo, give me a yay or nay on Back to the Future 2.
Yay.
Dave?
Meh.
No?
There's a third option.
There's my third. Yeah, it's kind of. I'd watch it if it
There's
was
always
on.
option C.
There's a third option. I'm gonna say yay. I mean, does it
Okay.
hold up? But yay, yeah.
All right, Jason?
I'm in the meh category as
Okay.
well, but I do enjoy it when it's on, but it's not something I will seek out to go watch.
Right on. All right,
Yeah.
so
Does anybody connect with anything that I say on that?
Oh yeah, I mean, like I definitely feel like the second half is better than the first,
Yeah.
as far as the writing and actually pretty much everything across the board.
38-year-old me totally gets where you're coming from. It is kind of cheesy now, but yeah, if we're going back to 9-year-old me and the wow factor, it's kind of like Jurassic Park. First time you see dinosaurs, your mind's blown. But now you see him, you're just like, oh look, the dinosaur. It doesn't matter.
But like, who didn't want that hoverboard back in the day?
Exactly.
Everyone.
And those Jordan shoes, the Jordan shoes.
Still want those.
all right, so we've addressed my biggest concern with sequels was me and Jaybird getting that clarified. So the first category I want to go to are really good sequels. Some of these good sequels I consider possibly better than the original film. The first one I would discuss is Aliens.
Clearly.
You've got Alien, which is a very solid movie. It is a very good space horror story that's got a lot of jump scares, and it's kind of like a creature movie in outer space. But when they switched over to do Aliens and turned it into the action movie that it became, I felt
Michael Biehn for life.
I felt like it was a far superior jump to what we originally got.
Not only a solid sequel, which, like you said, might be better, but it's actually one of the few movies that when you add in the deleted scene, the director's cut, it makes it better.
Sure.
And you can't say that about a lot of movies.
No. But yeah, the director's cut of that is phenomenal as well.
Cameron knows his shit.
You want to talk about James Cameron? Let's talk about his jump from the first Terminator, which is a decent movie.
Yeah.
But I far more enjoy T2 better than I like the first one.
Because he always ups the ante. He does that every movie. If he can't do it, he'll build it and find a way to make it happen.
I'm going to argue that one just a little bit.
Okay.
Growing up and loving T2 the way that I did, I get really, really bored at points of that movie, of the second one, and while I really enjoy the action and the fact that he pushed the special effects really hard in that one, and they were amazing to watch, and I still think they hold up even now watching that movie. Like the terror aspect of the first one is just so good. But it's almost just like the Alien to Aliens jump, where the first one is kind of more of a horror suspense kind of thing.
Cheaper.
The first one
budget.
And then it flips, and the second one's way more action packed, and it's got so much more going on. And
it's polished. It's way more polished.
But
absolutely.
if you really
I
think
think
about
I
the first Terminator movie, it's almost like a slasher movie.
Oh,
Like he's
yeah.
literally just
Yeah.
going around finding people to kill.
Yeah, and he's just stomping towards them at all times.
Exactly.
He's the Jason. He can walk.
But I really enjoy the second one, also for the fact, from a storytelling perspective, I loved flipping the bad guy from the first movie into the good guy in the second movie.
Oh yeah, because everyone loved Arnold. So.
Sure,
Oh, yeah.
but you have to think about it think about it this way. Before the internet ruined everything, when you watched the first movie and you got Schwarzenegger as this bad guy, when you're watching the second movie, for the first 40 minutes, you think Robert Patrick is trying to find John Connor to save him because you've got the T-800 back again. So from watching the first movie to the second one, you think the T-800 is trying to kill John Connor again. Robert Patrick is trying to save him. And then that scene in the hallway at the mall, when he pulls out the shotgun and says, "Get down," that's the moment you realize. That's the first time in the movie you realize, wait a minute, Arnold's the good guy, not the one that's trying to kill John Connor.
Yeah,
that's
but
where
dude,
I would be interested. I'd be interested in going back and watching the trailer to that movie.
they ruined it.
They
They told you in the trailer that he was the good guy.
Yep.
Yeah.
Wow.
That is the biggest trailer blunder in the history of Hollywood, and well, one of two.
One of them,
That is the biggest trailer blunder in the history of Hollywood, in my opinion, for the fact that it made the mistake of showing you he was the good guy.
But I think that was a marketing tool because
Absolutely.
Arnold had grown at that point. People like him, and if they knew he was the good guy, it would market better, and people go see it.
Right.
But
Well,
can you imagine
Arnold
if you
wasn't allowed to
can
be
you
a bad
imagine
guy
if you
ever after that?
I was gonna say, can you imagine if you didn't know that walking in and you were there?
Oh, it'd be incredible.
Dude, I went on opening weekend. I went on Saturday morning. My dad took me on Saturday morning to go see that movie. And if you didn't know that and then that part happened, you would have flipped your poop like crazy, man.
I didn't know going in. I didn't see any trailers. I only knew that it was coming out. So I did. I thought it was like, what the hell's going on?
That's awesome.
Yeah. And it was great.
Same here.
Absolutely great.
When you don't
you
know,
can't do
it
that
makes
today.
that first 40 minutes that much better.
Yeah, but you
I have
can't
to
do
say-
that today at all.
Yeah, you
not with the
can.
internet.
It's
Oh,
harder
come
to
on,
do.
not with the internet. And as soon as somebody knows something, they're blowing it out of the water. And
I have to say, like going back real quick to Aliens, the sequel. That's one of the few films where I probably went and saw that maybe 5 or 6 times in the theater.
Nice.
It's one of the few movies I've seen in the theater the most.
It is good.
During its run, and I just remember I'm 13 years old, and I just went back and forth just constantly to watch that. As far as T2, a little story there. So that came out 91 or 92?
91.
91. Okay. So at that time, I was working at General Cinema Eastgate, and we were so pissed we didn't get booked with it. Lowe's Cherry Tree got it. But that same weekend, the movie that we did open was the original Problem Child. And while it did okay,
R.I.P. Ritter.
Okay, the whole world is going down the street to see the Terminator movie, and we got Problem Child, and we were just so mad that we couldn't had played that movie at Eastgate, but that came out right at the same weekend. So
Lowe's Cherry Tree is where I saw it.
That
Jason,
sounds
where
like Eastgate.
where did you see Aliens 5 times?
Alien Cherry Tree.
Cherry Tree.
Yeah, I used to go. I saw T2 at the east side.
I think Glendale once. Glendale 4, 5, and 6.
4, 5, and 6.
Wow.
So I have a feeling we're all going to be pretty universal on this next one that I say, because I really don't think there's anybody on the planet who's going to disagree with this. Batman Begins is a decent movie. It's a lot of fun, but The Dark Knight is far superior.
Absolutely.
The Dark Knight
But
is
is it
literally near flawless.
If you take Heath out of it, is it still that great of a movie, though?
It depends on who plays the Joker.
Yeah,
if,
it is.
If somebody else was a good Joker, the movie would still be solid.
The story was good.
But he made it iconic. He made it iconic.
He did. He absolutely nailed it. But if you got somebody else who could have played a almost as good Joker. I still think the story and the things the Joker does, his character,
Yeah.
for the story, I still think having to choose, who he's gonna save, all of the stuff that the Joker does, as long as you got another actor who did as well as Heath, it as a movie holds up despite how good his performance is.
Do you imagine Joaquin Phoenix's version of the Joker being that Joker?
Wow.
And dude, that could have done really, really awesome.
That would have been interesting.
I would have liked it a lot more. It's
So
not to get off topic. That was not a Joker movie.
I feel like Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was just I'm trying not to get off topic of sequels, but the newest Joker to me was, you could have named that movie anything. Psycho killer, angry guy.
Yep.
I don't know. To me, it just was not a comic Joker movie.
Correct.
It was a psychology movie.
I agree with that 100%.
Yeah.
I was gonna say with Dark Knight, it's an excellent movie. It's probably one of the best movies of all time, best action movies, just best movies, period, movie experience.
Absolutely.
But I'm kind of one of those persons where like everyone just loved it so much that it kind of it kind of turned me off a little bit. Like everyone puts it up. What's that?
I'll say it pulled a Forrest Gump.
Yeah, it was just kind of like, I mean, everybody was bowing down to it. And I'm just kind of like, okay, it's just a movie. You know what I mean? Like it's a great movie, but it was so overly praised that it was just like, okay, it's almost kind of like, you know, how a lot of people are attracted to Brad Pitt, and that's kind of like,
yep.
you know, like,
I know all
right,
that.
you can have them. You know what I
He's
mean?
fantastic.
He is.
It's just, but I mean, it's still an excellent movie. It was just kind of like everyone just spewed over it. It's just like, okay.
So while we're talking about Batman sequels, I'm curious, how's everybody feel about Batman Returns?
I mean, I liked it.
It's fine. It's a good movie. I don't think it's better than the first Batman.
I'd agree with that.
Yeah. My problem with the Batman Returns is, like, you did not. The first one felt organic with how it moved between the Joker and Batman, whereas the second one, it felt like that was a villain movie that just had some Batman stuff in it.
Okay.
And to me, that just it really bogged it down. I think you could have. I think I would have preferred it to have more Michael Keaton, more Batman in it. Just
was that
because,
Michelle
like,
Pfeiffer?
Yeah, that's the Michelle Pfeiffer one.
Yeah.
I just
Burton got
Dude, Christopher Walken.
It's one of the first movies that started killing you with having too many villains, man.
Yep.
Like,
They
you just had too much going on.
And yeah, I mean, it was over the top with, you know, trying to make it a rogues gallery, but that needs to be more of a serialized thing. You can't cram 3 villains. I mean, in what, 90 minutes, 2 hours? It's overkill.
Agreed.
And it took away from the Batman side of it, like Jason said.
And I know a lot of people who really enjoy that movie a lot more than they did the original Batman, but I don't personally see that at all in that film.
Oh, the first one had the heart.
Yeah.
It had the heart, and the second one was like, I'll put it in the collection. I'll find it I got the $5 Walmart Blu-ray. I'll add it to the collection.
All right. Well, while we're on the comic book topic, let's address the movie that's behind Jason Maier, X2.
Yes.
In my opinion, far superior to the first one.
It is the aliens of Alien.
The first one had the problem of having to set up the universe and having to set everything up. The second one, I feel like they just that Nightcrawler scene to open that movie.
Yes, best opening scene of a comic book movie.
Amazing.
Oh, that killed me.
It's funny because I always hated Nightcrawler in the comic book because I was like, what can he do? What can he's all right. And then I saw that scene and I was like, holy crap! It opened your eyes to what he did. But I think the first one, it has a special place because like that was the first Marvel. You know what I mean? It was. I'll never forget when the lights dimmed and the X on Fox like lit up, stayed lit while the rest everything went black. Oh, that was like, oh my God, I was watching it with Manuel, and we were like, oh my God, I can't believe we're watching this movie. Yeah, it's hard for me to say 2 is better.
I saw a trade screening of X-Men 1, and they did not have the scene where the Senator comes out of the water.
I was there.
They didn't even have the special effects done. It just showed him walk out of the water, and then the screen went blank, and it said, Senator Kelly morphing, and it was a blank screen with those words on the screen. And then, I mean, this was like a week before the movie was coming out. So we were sitting there like, how the hell do you not have this done a week beforehand? And then they just cut it out. Because there's a total, there's a couple of lines of dialogue that they just completely cut from the movie. But the second one, I think the second one takes off like a rocket, and it goes really, really fast, and it's great until after they escape from the mansion. Then it slows down quite a bit until they get to the lake.
Okay.
But I will say, as far as that series of movies, by far the best one. X-Men, if not, a lot of people know that if not for Blade, X-Men never gets made.
Sure.
Clearly, yes.
X-Men is really the one that ushered in the entire movie business the way we know it today, because Blade was a horror comic movie, not a family friendly ish kind of comic movie. So
rated R at that.
Well,
I can't believe that's been 20 years now, right?
Yep.
Since the original X-Men, 20 years?
20 years.
Yes.
Yeah.
We opened it at Greenwood. It was one of our first movies that we opened.
Man, you guys are old.
Yes, we are.
Yeah.
Who's the oldest one on this call?
Well, he's talking about T2 back in 91, and I was 10.
I was in college when I saw Back to the Future 2.
Oh my God.
19. I'm an 80s child. I'm 80.
I'm 1980 also.
Yeah, 81.
81.
All right. Well, so since Blade got actually, the first thing I want to address right now, I was supposed to address this in my opening, and I forgot to. We've gotten on to comic book movies now. We as a group kind of decided at the beginning of this that we were going to leave the Marvel Cinematic Universe alone, specifically because each of those movies kind of builds on other movies that aren't necessarily direct sequels. So I didn't really feel comfortable trying to be like, well, Iron Man 2 was okay because it set up this for that, even though it wasn't as good as the first one. Or Winter Soldier's amazing, but a lot of the story from Winter Soldier was set up in a different movie. And Captain America was in movies between that and Winter Soldier. So as a group, we kind of just decided we were going to stay away from the Marvel Cinematic Universe. But Blade 2 was not in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So what do you guys think about Blade 2? Blade 2 is garbage. Blade 2 is terrible.
Shit.
I hate the
soundtrack with this shit.
I love
didn't
Blade
even
3,
see it.
But
I can't even remember the first one.
Really?
Blade 2 went on MMA and Turnbuckle. The fight scenes
like
incredible.
Infinity or something?
Huh? That was Trinity.
That's Trinity.
Trinity.
That's when Ryan Reynolds decided, like, hey, I'm going to be the funny guy. I'm going to be
that's
Deadpool
when Ryan Reynolds became awesome. But anyway.
Yeah.
The second Blade's good.
Yeah.
I like the first one. The first one's my favorite out of that trilogy for sure. But the ending of the first one's a little lackluster.
Right?
The second one was
motherfuckers always want to ice get uphill.
Pretty cool.
I hate
but
Ron Perlman in that movie. He is so terrible.
Oh.
He literally plays like the exact same person in that movie that he had played in.
Ron Perlman cannot act. Okay, I'm okay.
Dave, you are muted.
Sorry, I was going to say it's the same guy in the Alien movie. It's the same character.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
He can't act. He is just Ron Perlman in every movie. Beauty and the Beast, Ron Perlman. That's it. He's got one speed. Hellboy,
right, so
Ron Perlman.
Blade 2 is a blah. Let's shift back to one that I don't know most of you's opinions on this one. It's considered one of the greatest sequels ever made. I personally like it better than the original because it has non-linear storytelling in it, and that's The Godfather Part 2.
Uh-huh. I've honestly watched it once.
I believe it's better because as good as the first movie is a very slow gangster mobster movie, and it's Michael Corleone learning what his family does. In the second movie, you get to see the shift of him taking over and being the one that's making all these decisions.
Like
and
the birth of Al Pacino.
And you get the parallelism of what his dad went through when his dad was starting up and all the low-level mobster shit that his dad had to do when he was trying to become who he became in the first movie. So I like the parallels of they're both not necessarily fish out of water, but like the new guy aspect of we're just taking over these roles.
The Godfather movies are really good. They're
slow burns,
excellent stories, acting, but I just forget them. I have to watch them every like 6-7 years, and I forget what happens. But they're good though. But it's a dump truck. I just forget about it.
Yeah. Okay. They're iconic, but they're just very slow burns. I mean, I think that's just Scorsese's style in general. I mean, they're great. They're only as great as the acting. But yes, it is way better than the first. Okay. But it's not that kind of movie I can watch over and over and over. It's like once every 10 years. I'm going to watch that.
Dave, it's required taste. 1 or 2?
I'm an original kind of guy. I really liked 2. I really did. And when I first saw it, I was like, wow, that was really powerful. Seeing exactly what you said, that growth of Michael versus, his father. But I just think 1 holds up better on repeated viewings.
Okay. Jason, do you have a preference on either one?
I'm not going to lie to you. I've watched both of them 1 time each. It was 20 years ago. And like Jaybird, I don't remember a whole lot besides like the highlights of what I've seen other people play over and over again.
Okay. Somebody hit a gun in a toilet. What?
So yeah, back in the day.
Right.
Yeah.
Mordo, what's your opinion? 1 or 2, or just meh?
I got to go with 2.
Okay.
And yeah.
Any specific reason, or you just like it?
It's just one, like they said, it was Scorsese movies are just very slow, plodding along. But it just ramped up a little bit.
Oh, that's Francis Ford Coppola.
Francis Ford Coppola.
I'm sorry, that was Coppola. Sorry. Same thing. I feel like he and Scorsese. Sorry.
Generation, same director type.
Dude, you're good. I didn't even catch it. You're fine.
Okay. Oh yeah. Anywho, we can edit this out. But but no, I would say that it just, the second one just was more active for me, and that's why I liked it a little bit more.
Meteor.
This is a topic that Jason and I talked about recently. Empire Strikes Back versus Star Wars: A New Hope.
Empire kills it.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's got to be Universal, right?
Absolutely.
I have it down as this is better than the original.
Well, I mean, Empire.
That's all I got to say about that.
You could put that in the category of like, Empire, T2, Aliens. I mean, Dark Knight. They basically exceed, for the most part, the original, and not a lot of sequels have done that.
And I feel like in these instances, it's because the first film had so much setup that it had to do. Star Wars had to set up a lot of things before The Empire Strikes Back could be awesome. In the same way Batman Begins had to set up a lot of things before The Dark Knight could be as awesome as it is.
Yeah, I mean, as I could totally feel you on that. I still don't believe that George Lucas figured out that he was going to make them brother and sister until he was writing Return of the Jedi. I think he was planning on playing them totally against each other for the entire length of that, and then he was like, I don't know. Oh, maybe it's easier this way.
Sure. Which the awkward part about that is, so they kiss at the beginning of Empire, At
The scene in
two-thirds
Dagobah.
2/3 of the way through Empire, Yoda tells us there is another.
But he doesn't say who it is,
You're
so
right.
he could have made that anybody he
You're
wanted
right.
to in the entire movie.
It's the other female in the movie.
All
Oh,
right,
wait,
you know what? I'll
there's
give you
not
that.
another.
I'll give you that.
He could have said that it was Han Solo for all we know.
You're not
Chewbacca.
wrong.
That's true.
Is there anybody who wants to argue for episode 4 over Empire? No?
Episode 4.
A New Hope.
Yeah, New Hope. Yeah.
Star Wars has such nostalgia, and I feel like I always go back and like, oh, did I really like it was the beginning of something? But I think that's more like pulling at the heartstrings. Like that's the introduction, and everything. But no, I think mine's better.
Empire's way better, but
Right.
but it's still not my favorite. I still love A New Hope more so, but Empire's a better movie.
Dude, when back in the day, I saw all of them at the theaters. I saw the original at the theater. But when you, 80, 81?
That would have been 80.
When you saw the ads and the tauntauns on the big screen, I mean, especially those
Absolutely.
ads, man, it was just
Yeah.
and they still hold up, in my opinion.
I agree.
More so than Back to the Future.
So we've hit most of the iconic movies that I thought were better than their originals. This last one's just kind of a personal preference with me. It is The Spy Who Shagged Me.
Oh, God.
That's one that I believe far exceeded what the first Austin Powers did.
That was Heather Graham's
Yeah,
doing.
I mean, it was really good
facts.
for a sequel. It was good for a sequel. It was bigger than life, though.
Dave, which Austin Powers would you take?
I can't stand Fat Bastard, so I go with one. I just don't like the character.
That's
Get in my belly.
He made me want to go to Chili's. I mean,
Wardo, what's your opinion on the International Man of Mystery?
It's a good start for it, but the second one just really grew, and
I
they
agree.
made it a lot more than the sum of its parts. I mean, it made it into lexicon that we're still talking about 20 years from now. We aren't talking about
He's dying over here.
you know, we're not talking about characters like secondary characters from the first one. We're talking like Fat Bastard and Mini Me, things like
Mini Me will hold up. Yeah.
Mini Me holds up.
Yeah.
Hey, what were the
R.I.P.
what were the twins' name? Fuck me and fuck you.
Yeah.
Fuck you and fuck me.
yes. Twins, Basil. Twins.
When I first saw that scene and they said "fuck me, fuck you," I lost that. That shit was so fucking funny.
The Jerry Springer shit made
The
me
entire sequence at the tent.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
And all the shadow puppetry. And,
Yep.
Oh my God.
yeah. Oh.
It was like that and the Jerry Springer
And-
shit. I thought that was
Jerry
great.
Springer, I really feel like Seth
It
Green.
is shit.
But see, even talking about this makes me want to go back and watch the first one, because like the first one, I have no memory of it until I watch it. I'll be like, oh, okay, yeah, but like I really can't tell you. I can't remember anything really specifically from the first one. I just know it was good.
Elizabeth Hurley, and that's it.
Yeah.
I like the first one a lot, but the second one, I will admit, gets a little. They took all their jokes to like the next level with the second
Yeah.
one.
Mm.
Some of it really worked, some of it fell a little flat, but for the most part, the second one's a really. I kind of put them at like 1A, 1B for me. Like I don't know if one's better than the other, personally. So
All right, so we've addressed all of the ones where I believe the sequel was better than the first, but I've still got a couple where I think the sequels aren't bad, and the first one would be The Evil Dead 2.
Ooh.
And I enjoyed what they did with taking a very low-budget horror movie
Sam Raimi.
and then remaking the exact same movie as a horror comedy for the second one.
Never saw it.
You never saw this Evil Dead 2?
People that too.
Okay.
It's bits and pieces.
Here.
I know it's
was
a
like,
cult. I
wow.
know it's a cult hit.
Sure. That's
It was definitely more fun. It was camp. It's the pure
Yes.
definition of campy.
They literally make fun of themselves. Like I'm dead serious. I think it's the exact same script because the exact same things happened to the characters in the second one, but they ramped up the comedy aspect of it compared to when they were trying to make a legit scary movie in the first one.
Yeah. Now, I'm biased because Army of Darkness is still my favorite. I'm literally staring at my Bruce Campbell signed Army of Darkness poster.
Nice.
But
so next week on Trilogies, we're going to address Army of Darkness.
But the second one was still enjoyable.
Oh. All right. So I also really, and I'm gonna flex my Kevin Smith fanboy.
Yeah.
I love Clerks 2.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
I'd have to go back and I have no memory of it. I just felt disappointed when I
You
saw
don't
it.
remember the donkey scene?
And Pillow Paint?
So Randall burns down the quick stop.
Oh.
So they have to get a job at Moobies. So the whole movie is them working at Moobies, and it's a bunch of little sketches about the characters that come into Moobies. And then there's kind of a love story with Rosario Dawson.
Yeah.
And then there's a dance sequence.
ABC.
And
Mhm.
and then there's a donkey
No, see,
show.
I'd have to watch it again. I gotta watch it again.
You should watch it
And then
again.
there's
It's
I mean,
forget-
the poor
can't forget
Monkey for
Jay.
Life thing. As wrong as that was, that was great.
you can't forget Jay doing the Silence of the Lambs homage.
yes, the Silence of the Lambs homage.
Yes.
Yeah.
I felt like no one talked about the sequel when it came out, and there was no
They
one
didn't.
was
They
making
didn't.
references to it. Everyone was so stuck on the first one, which was classic.
Yeah. It's
But no one talks about. No, even today, I don't hear anybody talk about Clerks 2.
that's true.
You're not
That's
wrong.
good.
It's kind of an in the know sort of thing. If you've seen it once or twice, you can talk about it. But yeah, like you said, it's off the radar.
I honestly like it more than the
But we
original
still
Clerks.
talk about snowballing though.
Yeah.
Well, what
that was
I
original.
love and appreciated is the fact that the 10-year time gap or the 15-year time gap it addresses, it literally picks up with their current lives and how they've literally done nothing with their lives. And I enjoy the antagonistic friendship that they have, where it's just like one friend's trying to move away and the other friend doesn't want to let go of their friendship. And I mean, it all works out in the end, but I enjoy their dealing with their friendship so many years later from the first movie.
Yeah, but Shane, I mean, you also got to think of the aspects that were going on in your own life at that point in time too. So, I mean, yeah, I enjoy the second one, but the first one is far superior for me, and that's probably just because that's what Kevin Smith spent so much time and effort on. Whereas Clerks 2, it's a worthy succession of the characters, but it's one of those ones where I constantly forget that he even exists. I mean, I own the movie and I go, oh yeah, you haven't seen that. Let's watch that.
Now let's address this real quick though. You admitted not too long ago you watched it with your nephew and you really enjoyed it.
Oh no, it's a good movie.
Okay.
I just don't think of it often. Like Kevin Smith movies, I think of Clerks and Chasing Amy.
Sure.
Yeah.
To be completely honest, that's where those are his two best movies.
Sure.
For me.
Yep.
You know, Mallrats?
Everything else is just kind of okay, yeah, yeah, Mallrats. I totally like Mallrats, and I mean, I enjoy all of his movies.
Dogma's my favorite.
Copland.
Oh God.
Was it? What's it called? Cop what?
Copland. Oh,
Cop
Out.
No,
David.
Cop Out.
Why would you pull
That
out
doesn't
certain
count.
things?
Copland was the 1997 Sylvester Stallone movie.
Yeah.
Sylvester Stallone.
Yeah, Cop Out.
Cop
was-
Out.
That didn't deserve a sequel, so it didn't get one.
Yeah.
All right, so let's move on to there's very few modern day movies that I think are good sequels, but one of them that I absolutely love is Happy Death Day to You. The first Happy Death Day was a science fiction horror film that was a lot of fun. You get to watch this girl die every single day, different ways, and she has to try to figure out who's killing her. That was a fun formula for a movie. When they announced a sequel, I was seriously like, what are you going to do? How are you going to do a sequel? She broke the time loop in the end. So what did they do? They didn't make it a horror movie anymore. Now it's a science fiction
Sci-fi.
movie.
Yeah.
Sci-fi
I was
comedy.
disappointed with that.
I was too.
I was
I
not.
mean-
I thought that was a great genre flip, and like, would you
I
have
wanted
rather
something
seen
else.
a reboot of she's just living the same day all over again, like
No, I
Groundhog
wanted
Day?
a different explanation for it, though. I mean, other than sci-fi, and now the government's going to take over the project. I was like, what?
Dude,
Yeah.
I have to say that when I told Shane what I thought was happening in the first movie was like the spirit of her mom was kind of like guiding her to get the reset because of the fact that she kept dying. So like I thought it was something to do with her mom, the spirit her mom had, like somehow. And then for them to do what they did, while it's interesting, I thought it was just blah. I thought it was just
Yeah.
an okay.
I thought it was an easiest
Okay
explanation.
explanation.
It was a quick cash pickup.
Yeah, I was so excited for the second.
Uh-oh.
I think we just lost Dave mid
Yeah,
statement.
yeah. He's going to come back tomorrow at the same point in time.
Dave's rebooting his time machine right now.
Okay.
It's just funny that he paused.
Yeah. I don't know if Dave can hear us, but we can't hear you, sir. Jaybird, what we? Oh, there's Dave.
There he
is.
Dave,
There I
everything you
am.
just said
Sorry.
we didn't hear.
Sorry, I was just saying that I
Really
texted Jason and Shane about how psyched I was for the movie because I felt like the first one didn't get a lot of hype, and I had so much fun. I was so pumped. It was like I was actually excited to go see it in the theater, and I saw it, and I was kind of like, it couldn't live up to the first one for me.
Jaybird, you feel the same way, or what's your feeling?
I really enjoyed the first one much better, and this one was a letdown for me. Luckily I only paid $7 for it. I bought a digital code and downloaded it.
All right.
And let it sit for 2 months before I actually watched it. And it was just silly. They were just looking for a quick cash pickup, and I feel like there was no heart put into it. It was just kind of
Interesting.
but it's one of those things though. It's one of those things though where, you know what, I'll have it in my collection because I like the first one, and maybe 20 years from now I'll all of a sudden like this one.
Here's my thing to say about it though. It's the same writer and director who did the first one, so that's why I wouldn't say it was a cash grab. He got to tell his sequel that he wanted to his movie.
There was no sequel to that damn movie when that first one came out. The first one made a lot of money, and all of a sudden, like, get your ass back in the room and write something.
Yeah.
else.
Did the studio kind of push that writing to him, I think?
I will say
That's
what I
up there
love,
with,
what
like,
I
here's
love
a
about the
giant
girl
spider.
that plays the main character is like recently she did an interview where they asked her if they were going to do a third one, and she says, I don't care when he writes the third one, even if I have to come back like Jamie Lee Curtis and be a 50-year-old version of Tree, I will come back and do it. And I was like, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So another recent sequel that I thought far exceeded what I thought it was going to be was the Jumanji sequel, Welcome to the Jungle.
I love both those movies.
It's not better than the original Jumanji. Jumanji is classic in my opinion.
Yeah.
But the second one, for updating it to modern times, making it a video game instead of a board game, I felt like they did a really good job, and then did a good job of it was like the flip of what am I trying to say? In the first movie, the game comes to the real world. I liked that they flipped it and took the real world inside the game for the second one. And my favorite scene in the entire sequel is when you go and you find the hut that Zach, whoever's living is Zach, or
that's a Jonas brother.
Yeah, the Jonas brother. The hut that he's living in, and you find out that was where Robin Williams' character lived for the years that he was in the game. I was like, that's absolutely brilliant. I thought that was a great way to tie
It's a nice
Robin
nod.
Williams' character into the movie.
That's a nice nod.
So I did forget. Thank you, Chris Ward. Chris Ward, why don't you address the movie that I forgot?
Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan.
Oh,
Yeah.
Which, in all honesty,
I mean, that's a slam dunk.
It is. That movie is absolutely amazing. The only thing I will say it's not hard to be better than the motion picture.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that should have been
that-
the first Star Trek.
That was
Yeah.
a rough beginning.
The motion picture
Yeah.
was so dull
Yeah,
that thank
It's
God
I
like
it
don't
so-
even
came out.
remember the first one.
exactly.
They
It's
just,
just
they
the
just
form
kind
of
of
all
fly
the
around.
evens are good.
Yeah.
I'm
But
gonna
yeah,
probably watch it again sometime soon. But yeah,
The
I
bald
totally
chick.
don't remember it.
That's all I remember.
yeah.
Yeah.
The second
But-
one was far superior to the motion picture.
Only the
What about
even
Shane?
ones are good. That's kind of how it works.
You had mentioned
That
Die
movie
Hard.
made
What
me
about
afraid of like bugs getting in my fucking ears and shit.
yeah.
So as far as
Yeah.
Die Hard goes, Dave, there's a category that I like to call the Die Hard effect.
Uh-oh.
The Die Hard effect is literally where your first movie is so good that you decide to carbon copy it for the second movie and make minor changes. An example, Speed
Home Alone
2
2?
Cruise Control.
Oh God.
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
No.
Wow,
Under
we did so-
Siege
we did
2 on a train.
Under Siege 2 on a
Oh.
train.
Oh, dark
Hold on, here we
territory.
go. I got a really good one for you in this category. Teen Wolf 2,
Oh,
basketball to wrestling.
Okay. All right. So you have just opened up my category right there.
All right, bring it on, Jaybird. What else do we got?
Okay, so like Teen Wolf 2, Speed 2, no
Home
way are they
Alone
better
2.
than the first,
Home
the
Alone
originals,
2.
right? They are so bad. They are so fucking bad that they're good. They are
Now,
so
hold on.
bad.
Okay, Jaybird, let me ask you about this one. Let me ask you this one,
Jason
Jaybird. Predator 2.
Oh,
Huh?
Mississippi.
I could do without it.
Okay, all right.
I
I could do without it.
I liked it too. He wasn't too old for that shit.
But here's the thing though, like, okay, this is me in Walmart, like around the Christmas time. I'm shopping and I always raid the $5 Blu-ray bin at Walmart. And I was going through and I found Speed 2 Cruise Control for $5. $5 on
That's
Blu-ray.
$4.99 too much.
That whole store knew when I found that. I mean, I was that giddy and happy. And again, Speed 2 is so bad that it's so fun to watch because it's so bad.
Is
So is
it
Lethal Weapon?
Lethal
What?
Weapon 2?
Lethal Weapon 2 is the shit.
Yes.
Yeah, but does it fall in the same category?
I believe it does. The plot
Yeah.
is really similar to the first one.
They
Oh,
have
well,
just
yeah,
about a
well,
community there.
No,
Well,
I
the
mean,
problem with Lethal Weapon 2 is it starts that progression of like every single sequel we make, we must add a brand new major character
Yep.
and let them be a part of this movie.
Yep.
It's
No,
Joe
I mean,
Pesci in
it-
2,
it
Rene
is the-
Russo in 3.
I don't
Chris
see
Rock in
Lethal Weapon
4.
1 and 2 as the same though. I mean, Lethal Weapon 1 was all about is this cop suicidal or not? And then they
Right,
bond
right.
eventually.
Yeah, but it was
the
all
second
about
one was
who's
more
bad,
okay.
not who's
They were
selling
going up against the drug
drugs.
guy, right?
That's just an action movie.
All right, so
no, but
so what about
the whole
hold on? What about U.S. Marshals?
That's a different movie too. Well,
No,
it's
he's
not.
hunting somebody down.
It's the exact same thing.
that would be
He's hunting somebody down. Yeah.
it wasn't a horrible movie, but it wasn't The Fugitive. But it wasn't a horrible movie though. Whereas like you started the category as sequels that are the same premise. It's just you're doing another one.
correct.
Yeah.
Whereas
US
the
Marshals?
movies you were naming off, yeah, it's the same premise, but I was just thinking they're just such bad sequels that you like them because they're so bad.
Problem Child.
Problem
Another
Child,
two.
Lethal Weapon 2, no matter if you think it's the same premise as the first one, Lethal Weapon 2 was a superior sequel.
Okay, here
It
we
was
go.
excellent.
Jaybird, give me this one. Short Circuit 2.
Oh
No.
God.
Oh,
No,
cried
that
like
was
a
so
little
that
bitch
was so
during
bad
that
I wouldn't even have it in my collection.
All right, what about Next Friday?
Yeah,
You know what?
I put it in the
Next
collection.
Friday, it's not my thing, and Friday is one of those movies that I stop no matter what, and I'll watch it.
Oh,
It could be 1 in the morning,
Really?
and I'm like, oh, I gotta watch it now. But there are people that feel strong about Next Friday.
That's a cash grab. That one I will say.
That was
is.
definitely a cash grab. What about
Friday was legendary. Next Friday was like, what?
Gremlins 2?
Oh,
The new
You know
Batman.
what? That's another one that at least they flipped the script on that.
You're right.
Because
That
I don't
went
think
way
it was an
more
exact
comedy.
replica. Because the first one felt more like a horror movie,
Yes.
whereas the second one feels more like a comedy.
Comedy, yeah.
Yes.
But
So at
I
least
have it
they
in my
switched
collection,
up.
though.
What about so here's a movie where I think all of us love the first one. I'm curious how you guys feel about the second one, and that's Ghostbusters 2.
Loved it.
Vigo.
Loved it.
Jason apparently did not.
I like
Oh,
Ghostbusters.
God, man.
You got Bobby Brown on the soundtrack too. I mean,
Oh,
come on,
yeah.
can't go wrong.
It's
Play
literally
that
the
song
same
all the
movie.
It was, yeah, definitely the same movie, but
And they
They
didn't
upped it a little bit.
try. I think they
Special
all
effects.
literally took their checks and went, okay, where do I go?
So this is we'll get to the why did this ever get made category soon.
How did this get
I
made?
would like to bring up a movie that I think is one of the worst sequels. Actually, I got two of them right here. The Lost World was a pathetic sequel to Jurassic Park.
I can agree to that.
The fact that they turned it into a Godzilla film for Act 3
Yeah.
just ruined the movie for me.
And they did it again later. But anyway, yes. Sorry.
Yeah. And
That
then
was
the
a
other
movie where I went back to see it again just to make sure I missed something because I wanted to like it so much.
Mhm. But like,
Just to
I mean,
make sure.
Jeff Goldblum is just terrible in the movie. The girl that plays his daughter is terrible. Pete Postlewaite might be because Vince Vaughn isn't even good.
Vince
Pete
Vaughn tried to save it.
Yeah, Vince Vaughn didn't. Pete
Yeah.
Postlewaite was probably the best character in the whole movie.
Yep.
So yeah, that's one that I think is really garbage. And then Mission Impossible 2 was
Yeah,
an
no.
I
absolute
liked it.
garbage sequel.
It
No.
was John Woo.
First of all,
Garbage.
yes, it was John Woo. Why are you asking John Woo, an amazing action-adventure director, to direct a movie about a covert group of people who are supposed to go unnoticed in any mission they go on?
I feel like he was just coming off of Crouching Tiger.
You
and
get
he
the
needed
director
it.
who
No.
blows
This was
up everything.
that was Ang Lee. That was
Yeah,
Ang
that
Lee
was
doing
Ang
Crouching
Lee.
Tiger.
Sorry.
But on top of that, he had just come off a Face
Slow
Off.
motion,
That's
Face
what it was.
That's
Face
what
off.
it was. Yes.
the black hat, that shit was smooth.
The
What was
black
smooth?
hat.
The black knit cap, the birds and shit flying all around them. And
That's
stuff,
just John Woo's trademark.
Yeah, that's
it was good.
He does the doves
I'll
flying.
have to watch that one again.
another very bad sequel. And this is one of those categories of why do you make an R-rated original movie that's really good and decide to make a PG sequel to it with Conan the Destroyer?
Oh, yeah.
Why? Why?
Casper.
Conan the Barbarian was savagely R-rated and very, very good as a movie.
Yeah.
Maybe not good, but enjoyable as a movie. And then you made a sequel and decided to turn it into a PG comedy?
Trying to get more people in the seats.
Yeah, I think that's it. What about this? Rambo, the Rambo movies.
Okay.
2 is a solid sequel.
Yeah,
Yeah.
2 was way better.
But it was a way different movie for sure.
Oh, 100% way different.
Yeah, that was,
Can I? Hey, Shane.
Yes, go for it.
I was going to say, and this may come up sometime in the conversation tonight, but in thinking about sequels and some of the movies we've talked about, and I've heard it consistently mentioned or said how the first one is kind of like setting up.
Mm-hmm.
And I find that sometimes with these sequels and trilogies that come out and such, it's almost like, okay, the setup was all we needed. We didn't need part 2 or part 3. And you feel like the further you get into these movies, it's just kind of like, can we just go back to the setup? Does that make sense?
It does, and it's an interesting perspective.
Matrix.
It's
100
kind of like it's kind of like Back to the Future, and you're right on Matrix for sure.
Yes.
Can we just go back to the simplicity of just the first one and cut everything else out. It's kind of like the Twilight movies. Like, I love the first one. I own the rest of them because I like the first one, but it just got too fucking weird. They take the story and they take the simpleness of the first one, and then at number 2 and so forth, then they start going in this weird ass tangent. And they become these weird ass movies.
So Jason, here's what I'm going to say about Twilight. It's the same reason why I haven't brought up like the Bourne movies or anything like that. Is series like that are based on books. I find it really hard to judge the movies because like the source material was already there for like 5 books or multiple books. So it's like when they make the first one, it's logical that they're gonna make like Harry Potter. It was logical they were always gonna make all of those into movies. Or when they did Lord of the Rings, you knew they were gonna make all of them into movies. So like things like Twilight or like the Bourne movies, like those are things that I tend to like gloss over because I guess I did mention The Lost World, but that's because Jurassic Park is literally one of my favorite movies of all time. And
go back to like, okay, here's a prime example, and I know y'all gonna agree with me on this. Hangover, the original Hangover.
Okay.
Yes.
Perfect movie. And then number 2 and number 3, they just went in this weird dark tangent. That's like, what the fuck? Like, it just got weird. Do you agree?
I definitely agree on that movie.
They're not
What
necessary.
I'm talking about.
You know what?
The
Actually,
first one was
Jaybird, I have the perfect movie for this. What you're talking about right now. There should only have been one Highlander film.
Oh, because there can only be one.
Because there can only be one. The Highlander is the one movie that should never have anybody think about, let's make a sequel to a movie where the entire point of the movie is to end with one person having the quickening. And then they decided to make 4 more movies and an entire television series about there can be only one.
And a cartoon.
And a cartoon.
Yeah. I had forgotten about the cartoon.
I used to watch that. Damn.
Oh.
You know what? I will say this as well, because this is one of my favorite action-adventure movies. I never needed the second or third one, and that's The Mummy. The Mummy is a great first movie. That sequel with The Rock is absolute garbage from start to finish.
It doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
None. And how they even brought back Arnold Vosloo's character. Like, if you had given me a sequel with a completely different bad guy, I might have been like, meh.
Whatever, dude. He was a mummy. Like, I don't care that they
point.
brought him back. I don't know how the hell you expect us to suspend disbelief that nobody recognized Rachel Weisz's character in the first movie as the reincarnated version of that chick.
Yeah, they were just adding
the
shit.
day. Like, that was just, it was absolutely horrible. Then on top of that, you had to put, like, you didn't even do The Rock justice.
No.
With
Right.
your CGI.
Yeah,
Rock
like
at the
2
end of the
minutes.
movie.
Yeah.
You literally.
So The Rock was in the second one?
Yes.
Yeah.
He was
Yeah,
the
Scorpion
King.
King.
But not
He's
for like a
been
long
around
time.
that long, man.
So
Yeah.
the only thing that made no sense to me is why they didn't just put The Rock in like a harness and literally have him like bouncing around a sound stage, going from place to place, and have like put green arms on him or whatever so that they could CGI it later. So at least you had his face.
They CGI'd him at the
Oh,
end.
we're just gonna badly CGI pre-good CGI, I guess is the best way to put that. Like, oh, he looks so horrible.
Yeah, it was bad
It
CGI.
should have been up for a
that CGI
Razzie
is
if it wasn't up for a Razzie. So, And I
So
love
where
that
does
person.
the Indiana Jones fall in? I mean, if Raiders is the original, is
You know-
Temple of Doom just?
And
That
here's,
Temple of Doom second. Even it's a prequel sequel.
I was
but
going to say,
it's-
that's the weird thing.
Exactly.
Is that was by time stamping on the movie. It's technically a prequel,
Exactly.
but it came out second.
Wait a minute, was it?
Yeah.
According to the time, yeah.
Yeah. Like,
Really?
everybody
Yeah.
made a big deal about how George Lucas was the first person to do a prequel movie or whatnot, and they all forgot that Steven Spielberg did it It's one. Temple of Doom is set
Yeah,
one
but
year
George
before
Lucas.
Raiders of the Lost
George
Ark.
Lucas wrote that movie.
Oh,
Yeah.
I didn't realize that
Good
was a
point.
prequel.
Yep.
Yeah, it was before Raiders, technically.
But so I actually when the when the one that shall not be named was coming out, my wife had not seen any of these Indiana Jones movies.
Wow.
So I went out, I bought all 3 of them on disc, I brought them home, and we popped each one in one by one. And while Raiders is a really good movie, I would almost say that Temple of Doom is a better film overall. I really enjoy Temple of Doom. I don't know if it's because of the darker tones in it, and I was older, so I got it better. I used to love Last Crusade. Last Crusade was my favorite growing up. Maybe that's
Still
what I
is.
saw it in the
That's a
theater
good
when I
one.
was like
Still
12
is
or
my favorite.
whatever. I saw that at Glendale 456. But yeah,
When that
Temple
fucking
of Doom-
raft, when that fucking raft went off the cliff, I'm like,
Yeah, but they all have that.
I know, but that was just like one of those like.
I'm not. It's a stupid moment by far, but like it is. I like the movie better than Raiders. It's more fun than Raiders is. Even though it's darker, it's still more fun than Raiders.
But Raiders was like just like it was smart, it was sexy, it was just pure heaven. It was
had
just
more historical present to it. I
It was
mean,
just
it was
cool.
Ark of the
It's
Covenant.
a good movie. I really enjoy them both. I actually really enjoy all 3 of those movies.
But Doom had Short Round, and he kind of sold it for me.
Yep, Short Round was fun.
Call in Toxic Jones.
All right, I've come to the moment where I want to address what I consider to be the absolute worst sequel. In my opinion, I don't think it's actually the worst sequel ever made, but it's the sequel
Grease
that
2.
I hate. No. I've actually never seen Grease 2, so I can't comment on it.
Oh my, Grease 2 is the shit!
Said no one ever.
No one ever.
I kid you not, and I'm sorry for taking up time.
Do it,
but Grease 2, Jenny, Steffi, and I, Grease 2 is the shit. Back in the day, it was awful. It was awful, but it grew into this cult hit, and I love Michelle Pfeiffer, and I actually really like the music in Grease 2, and I've probably have seen it maybe 3 or 4 times in the last couple of years. I mean, everybody wants a cool rider.
No.
Cool rider. Nobody wants a cool rider.
So bad, it's good.
Oh, okay.
Yo, it's just bad.
We can move on from that
one. I want to address a movie that you spend the entire first movie convincing me that these 2 buddy cops are best friends and would do anything for each other, and they've always got each other's backs, and no matter what, they would lie to their significant others to help protect each other, and everything is good in their lives. And then you want to give me a second movie where literally 5 minutes in, I don't want to be your partner anymore.
Oh my God.
I can't tell you that I'm dating your sister because then you won't be my friend anymore. Bad Boys 2 is one of the dumbest written movies I have ever seen, and it ruins the first film.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That plot is absolutely terrible.
It's bad.
You could literally cut that movie out and just go to Bad Boys for Life, and I would love it.
Yes.
The third one was good.
The third one
I like the third one.
Exceeded my expectations. I consider that to be the actual sequel because they're ride or die for life again.
This isn't my blackness talking, I promise, but no, I still love Bad Boys 2.
How? What is redeemable about that movie? You literally took a shit on everything you set up in the first movie. You're trying to give me 2 characters that are best friends that would do anything for each other.
And what happens by the end of the movie? They're in Cuba, and he does anything for them. I mean, they have a little fight. Brothers work their way through it. And by the end of the movie, all is well. It was a tiff. I get that. Was a little dumb about your dating my sister.
It's literally like every other Michael Bay movie though. Like
what's Michael Bay?
He's made like 3 good movies, and then he just keeps pooping and throwing stuff on screen now.
Other than The Rock, I'm trying to figure out the other
Armageddon.
two. Armageddon and the first Bad Boys.
Well, you know what?
I'll give you the first Transformers because I actually enjoy that movie, but it's not a good movie.
My Bad Boy story goes back to the $5 bin with the Blu-rays. A couple months ago, I was at Best Buy, and they have a Sony section, and they have buy 2 get 1 free. And so for $15, and I kid you not, $15, I got Bad Boys 1, 2, and I got the what's the Marvel movie about the guy that turned into the black thing that came out about a year and a half ago?
Venom.
Tom Hardy.
Venom.
Yeah, all 3 for $15 Blu-ray.
Turns into the black thing. That movie was terrible, but you summed it up. That's about right.
So the question I want to pose to you guys at this point.
Hold on, wait.
Yeah, what's up?
So is Venom the reverse version of the discussion of chasing Amy with Darth Vader? He wants to be the baddest one in the entire universe. So that's why he does this. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I feel like it's the exact same story as what they say.
What's a Nubian?
Yeah.
Oh.
So the question I want to throw out to you guys, I got a couple more movies we can talk about in this category. Do you think that we're more forgiving of action sequels or comedy sequels?
Ooh, action. There's good action.
Good action can cover a bad script.
Yeah, that's kind of just American. You get explosions and shit going on. Where you
Expendables.
Exactly.
There you
exactly.
Yep.
Is there a plot? Who knows? Nobody cares. Shit's blowing up.
What other 80s action person you can bring back onto the screen, even though the movie's bad? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Scott Speedman. Where's he at?
I don't know how they never got. Why didn't they get Steven Seagal in the Expendables movies?
Cynthia Rothart. Where's she?
Probably because he was too big.
Mark Dacascos.
Because some of the other comedies I've got written down on here are things like Weekend at Bernie's 2.
No.
Major League 2.
You go to the $5 bin at Walmart to find
I would buy those movies from the dollar store.
Yeah.
I you know what? I'll admit if I would, and I would not. In fact, I forgot about Major League 2.
Right?
Wesley Snipes with Omar Epps.
Yep. Harold and Kumar Guantanamo Bay movie.
Oh, God.
Terrible. But then you've got action movies along the lines of John Wick 2, The Chronicles of Riddick, Pirates of the Caribbean 2, Dead Man's Chest.
I like the first one better, so that's just me. But yeah.
For sure, I do too.
Yeah.
So
I think you forgive the action movies because, like Brandon said, you know, there's enough shit blowing up. You're just like, okay, I can watch this. Bad comedy is just bad.
Yeah.
I definitely agree with that.
That's a fact.
Jaybird, do I remember right that you're a big Silence of the Lambs fan?
Yes.
How do you feel about Hannibal?
It wasn't as special as Silence of the Lambs, but I still liked Hannibal for a sequel. It was definitely grittier and definitely bloodier and gritty.
They ate a dude's brain. That was weird. While he was alive, and fed it to him.
Mordo, you're a big Tron fan?
So, yeah.
So, Brandon, what about you on Tron?
The second one, I guess. Is that what you're saying?
Were you a Tron fan before Tron?
Oh, as a kid?
Came out?
I mean, yeah, it was out before I was born, whatever, but I watched it as a kid.
Sure.
Yeah,
How do you feel about Legacy?
Didn't like it as a whole.
Okay.
I thought the sci-fi scenes were pretty cool. Michael Sheen's little scene, kind of cool, but It wasn't that great of a movie, honestly. It was more the nostalgia factor kicking in.
Yep.
What
And
about you
people
with
just
Legacy? Same thing?
I would concur with that. I mean, aside from, like you said, the nostalgic kick and a really good soundtrack, I mean, it's pretty forgettable for me.
Yeah, you throw Daft Punk on it, people like, oh, Daft Punk.
It is one
That
of
was
those
one of
ones
those
that,
movies where I almost think like it was too. We were too far many in the years to do the sequel. You know?
Yeah, 10 years ago, maybe, or
Yeah.
before it came out. But the special effects and everything that we've seen now in games and everything is just kind of like, well, I see that on my Game Boy almost. You know, this is
All right, Jaybird. So you want to address long-time sequel gaps? How about Blade Runner 2049?
I liked it, but I kind of felt it wasn't anything like the first one. But I know it's so many years later. But they were two different movies to me. But I still enjoyed Blade Runner, the 2049 or whatever it's called. But God, when you're watching a movie, you're like, "Fuck, this is a long movie."
right.
Yeah.
It just wouldn't end.
It just kept going and going, and I didn't know where it was gonna head. But there's something still special about it, and I like it. But I won't be popping it in every day. But it's in my collection because I got it for $7, digital copy.
Shane, you mentioned, Shane, the thing about too long to wait for a sequel.
Yep.
What about Zorro? Zorro was a great movie with Banderas. I really enjoyed it, and it was just like they announced that sequel how many years later, and you're like, who cares now? Like you could have.
Well, not only that, but the sequel was horrible.
Yeah.
I know I saw it, but I don't even remember the sequel.
Like I wouldn't even get it in the $5 bin. I wouldn't even pick it up.
It's not good.
The same thing they did in Bad Boys, where they fall in love in the first movie, and they're willing to do anything for each other, and then like all of a sudden something happens and she's unhappy and she's thinking about leaving him, and she ends up accidentally going to the guy who's actually the main evil villain. It's like it was, but it felt horribly forced that they were having these fights or whatever. It didn't feel organic at all. I don't even remember the plot. I just remember hating it because it was one of those moments of like, oh, I'm going to make them not like each other right now, and that's going to be your driving force of the movie, even though they have a kid together. And like, yeah, I love that first movie. I just recently bought it digitally because it's such a fun adventure action film.
What movie are we talking about again?
Zorro. Mask of Zorro.
Oh,
Mask of Zorro.
So I still don't understand why you get Anthony Hopkins to play a Spaniard, but whatever.
Connery was a Russian captain. I mean, come on.
And I mean, he's been everything, right? Like,
right. Literally. But he has the same voice and everything.
The only thing he has not done is played a black person.
Yes.
Has Connery done a sequel? Oh, he did The Quickening. Never mind. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was about to say he was smart and never did a sequel.
There was somebody who said they'll never do a sequel. Denzel Washington. He said that he would never do a sequel to a movie.
Yeah, but he did Equalizer.
Yeah. That's the first one he ever did, which is another crappy movie.
That is a crappy movie.
The first one I
like
enjoyed.
Equalizer too. I liked it better than the first one.
What?
Oh no.
Let me hear your argument for it. Why was it better than the first one?
Oh,
I just liked it. I just got into it, you know.
The thing I did like about the second one is the not actual plot of the movie. The first 30 minutes where he's just randomly doing like what the Equalizer did on the TV
on the train,
show.
yeah.
Yeah, when he's doing jobs for people, I enjoyed that, and I was like, oh, maybe I'm gonna like this movie. And then once the real plot kicked in, and of course his old buddy screws him over, and nobody saw that coming 10 minutes in, I just zoned out after that, and I was like, "This is
one of those movies you just kind of ride with it. You know what's going to happen and shit, and it'll be like, oh, okay, yeah, he's a traitor." But
how do you like it better than the first one if that's how you know how it's going to go?
I don't know. It just I didn't hate the first one. I just kind of got into the second one more.
What I love about those two movies.
Why don't you like Grease 2?
Grease 2. That thing's a piece of poop. You're the one who decided to like Michelle Pfeiffer singing for some strange reason. Give me Olivia Newton-John any day over that girl. But on top of that, but I remember when Equalizer came out was not too. It was kind of close to John Wick, and I remember like what I thought was Equalizer came out first, and what I liked about Equalizer was how he plotted everything. Like when he stepped into a room, he was checking every single corner. And he was
did the Sherlock slow motion thing, but yeah.
Absolutely, he's breaking it down, going, "Okay, I've got to do this now, and then I can go and do that then." And he's making his methodical plan about everything. Whereas John Wick is just like a hurricane, man. He's just like instantaneously reacting to absolutely everything.
Keanu,
no plotting whatsoever, and
no play for Keanu.
Oh, that's what I love about John Wick 1. Where I feel like the sequels were not that good.
What? I'll agree with that. The sequels are fine and fun, but nowhere near what the first.
He killed a guy with a fucking pencil.
Shane, I can't believe some of the movies you haven't even got to yet.
All right, well, dude, let's open it up.
Gross them out.
Hold on, time out. Actually, the one category I've got left to discuss, and then I'll open it up to whatever you want to talk about, are horror sequels.
Oh, finally. Jeez, you are the,
I love horror movies.
Bring on the Scream.
I know which one you're going to say first.
Scream 2, guys.
Yeah,
It
Scream.
started out with the meta movie inside of a movie. And we got Jada Pinkett, we got Omar Epps doing their Drew Barrymore impression.
You sure that wasn't Wesley Snipes?
I am sure that wasn't Wesley Snipes.
I think
but Scream
the best part
is great.
The best part about the whole Scream 2 thing was what was the one movie that did the parody of Scream 2? And the
Scary movie.
The dude was stuck his penis in the hole
vacuum cleaner
of the bathroom
instead of
the
movie,
the night. That's where you knew Scary Movie 2 was the shit.
Scream 2 might be better than the first one.
I mean, Scream 2 was the shit.
I love the first one, and you know me, like I said last week. I don't know if I said it last week or whenever I said it previously. I love original stories, and I love how when they set up stuff.
Yep.
But Scream 2 as a whole might be a better movie overall, and it
better cast.
Simpson took more time to write it than he did Scream 1. But I love Scream. There is no, I mean, heck, Shane and I kicked off our independent movie making by ripping off a Scream Baby. Like that movie is awesome. But
Scream 2 is excellent, but nothing will ever. You can't tell me that everyone that walked out of it, or when they were in the midst of watching that original Scream and Drew Barrymore dies in the first 5 minutes, you're like, whoa.
Yeah,
Dave's got a great story for that one.
I mean, that alone set that movie up, and like, oh my god, what do we have are coming our way here watching this movie?
Absolutely.
And where you knew going into Scream 2, okay, Jada's gonna get her ass gonna get sliced here. She's
right.
You know what I mean?
Dude, like that part where Nev Campbell and her roommate are trying to get out of the car by climbing over him.
Oh, that was tense.
Like, dude, that was like on your edge of your seat.
Oh, yeah.
Like, that movie has some really great moments.
But with Scream 2, the beginning of Scream 2, I thought was still phenomenal.
Yes.
And the fact too of, being in that movie theater audience and everyone's like doing their thing and screaming and shit, and she's getting, stabbed,
murdered.
And then you remember the people in the audience are sitting there going, yeah, while the guy's stabbing her right in front of everybody.
That's America for you.
Jaybird, I'm going to go right back to the Scary Movie thing, remember? I got that shit on tape.
This is for Shakespeare in Love. Oh, no. This is for Schindler's List, because she was like, they don't even get together in the end. Scary Movie was really good for the time that it came out too.
One thing that I absolutely do love about Scream 2 also is how meta the end is when it's revealed that it's Billy Loomis's mother, and Timothy Olyphant literally laughs and goes, "You didn't see that coming, did you?"
Billy Loomis's mother.
Well, and dude, talking about sequels to scary movies, I Still Know What You Did Last Summer. Like,
Oh God.
what?
Garbage.
Talk
Garbage.
about money grab, man.
Uh,
Like,
The Ring
you get
2,
to see
The
Jennifer's-
Grudge 2.
You get to see Jennifer's tits in that movie, and I still don't think it's worth buying in a $5
Did
bin.
you actually get to see him?
She's
I feel like I
wearing.
don't-
She just takes a shower, and she's got like a
That doesn't
sheer like bathrobe on, and you can see right through it, man. And
Okay.
like, it's
Wow.
just. It's
I
still
still
not
missed
worth
that.
$5 at Walmart in the bargain.
But that first one though was good though.
Oh, I
Yes.
love the first
First
one.
one's
First
great.
one's fun.
And
Jaber
that's
has-
one of
So-
that's
So
that
bad.
was. But like speaking of that movie, and even though the sequel was bad, I Know What You Did Last Summer, whatever, and even like Scream, there was just something special about that period of time, and when those movies were coming out, just a really fun period to just watch the movies. You know what I mean? Just go to the movies and watch those types of movies.
Jaybird, I know you're a big Halloween fan. How do you feel about Halloween 2?
Loved it.
Do you? You think
It
you think
has
it works
issues.
well?
It has issues, but I still think Halloween 2 is a very good sequel, and there's some really creepy ass moments in it.
Dude, I haven't seen that movie in probably 15, 20 years now.
Really?
And
Yeah.
I mean, and the worst part, and you even knew it back then watching it, they had to put a wig on Jamie Lee Curtis
Okay.
for the sequel. And it's so far off from her hair in the first one, and it's the same night.
Yeah.
It takes place the same night. So that's kind of like that still doesn't sit well with me. Like, but it Halloween 2 was, you could tell like Friday the 13th had come out and some more of the violent horror stuff.
Okay.
So they were kind of forced with Halloween 2 to be a little bit more violent. Whereas the first Halloween was very subtle violence, kind of quiet,
Sure.
and it got a little louder and messier and grittier in the sequel, but still very good for a sequel though. Anybody else agree?
As a whole, I'm not a big fan of the Halloween movies,
Oh.
but the second one was. That's just me. I don't know. I got kind of bored with Michael Myers after a minute.
What was I thinking? What about
They could put Michael Myers in space, and I would watch it with popcorn and bags of gum there.
you
Michael and
mentioned,
Jason killing in
you mentioned
space.
Friday the 13th. That's a franchise that kind of, until later movies, didn't change their formula very much, but I still think the second one works well.
Oh yeah, because Jason kicks in.
Correct, yeah. Because when you watch the first one and find out who the killer is, and then you go into the second one, I mean, I guess probably a lot of people assumed that it was Jason or knew that it was Jason or whatever, but like, you just, I don't know, it played well as a sequel, even though it's a almost carbon copy of the first one as far as the like killing counselors go.
Well, and the messed up part is like I didn't know since the first one came out before I was born, I believe, because it was like
78, I think.
Yeah. So I watched a bunch of the Friday the 13th movies, but they were always the ones with Jason in them. So I had no clue when I was watching the first one that it wasn't Jason. So that was kind of one of those moments of like, oh
that's
wow,
cool. That's interesting.
That's kind of cool and different because I had no clue because I watched them completely out of order.
Dave, what about you? Watching the first or the second one?
I saw the first one. I'll never forget. I was in third grade, and it was on HBO. And I begged my dad to watch it, and he let me. Like, I would never imagine letting my kid now watching that movie in third grade. He's in fourth grade, and it wouldn't fly. But it scared the living crap out of me. But I love that Jason's perspective on that. How he didn't, because he didn't see it, he had no clue the mother was killing. That's really a unique way to look at things, to see it from that perspective. I look at it as it kicked off that whole, they just kept going after that. So I like 2. I think 2 was really good.
I agree.
But 3 was the best.
Oh my God!
Because it was in 3D.
I got to tell you, one of my favorite experiences going to see a movie. I saw 3 when Dave Lichty was showing it over at Castleton.
Oh,
And
so fun.
it was insane. The people were screaming and it was so much fun. To this day, I think it's one of my favorite times of watching a movie in a theater.
All right, so Jaybird, what else have I not addressed yet? That I've pretty much hit my list of sequels I wanted to talk about. I've got one that I'm kind of saving, but
I can't believe you didn't mention, and I wrote some stuff down.
Okay, let's do it.
Superman 2.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Very, very, very
Yep.
good.
You're right.
With the three villains, Non and all the other two.
Yep. Zod. Yep.
Let's see here. I liked. I actually really liked Creed 2.
I haven't seen either Creed 1 or 2, so I have no perspective on those. I've heard.
I think 1 is a better movie, but 2 was enjoyable.
Yeah,
I
2 is
think
good.
For kind of picking up and picking up off of Rocky, and
Rocky 2.
We're in current
time.
time.
Rocky 2, yep.
I think the Creed little whatever you want to call it, double whatever is are solid. They're solid movies.
Yeah, both of them are good.
And then I wrote down. I know it's kind of Marvel, but I don't know. I don't put it with the Marvel movies, but Spider-Man 2 I think is excellent.
Yeah,
I was thinking that one too.
Yeah.
Doc Ock was a way better villain.
I really liked Kill Bill 2.
No,
And
I can't be with you on that.
I kind of like that's one whole movie.
Kill Bill 2. And then the last one I've got here is The Color of Money.
Oh, okay, yeah. The
Classic.
sequel to the pool movie.
The Hustler.
The Hustler. Jeez,
The Hustler.
Oh my god, I could not pull that out. Yes, Color of Money is phenomenal. And the funny thing is I had Google searched sports movie sequels, and that's why I forgot to write down Rocky 2 and The Color of Money, because I saw that there weren't really a lot of sports movie sequels.
Right.
But yeah, I am a huge fan of The Color of Money. I think Tom Cruise's egotistical character in that movie plays so well with Paul Newman. That yes, man, I don't know if I like that more than The Hustler, because The Hustler is just really. I might like it more than I like The Hustler. The Hustler is a very slow movie, as good as it is.
Yeah.
But
Color of Money was just, it was updated and it was just filmed. It was very slick.
Yeah. Definitely agree with that.
On the subject of Tom Cruise movies,
yeah,
really looking forward to Top Gun 2. Really upset at the fact that we have to wait another 5-6 months for that. The first one is a guilty pleasure movie because it is not very good as far as I'm concerned. But
I love it.
Well, yeah, I like it a lot. But one of the things that I think is really cool is the fact that in the first movie, Tom Cruise was the only one who could actually be filmed in a jet while it was moving, because he was the only one who could put up with the G-forces of them actually flying. Whereas, they went through an entire training regiment. So, everybody who is a flyer in this movie, you're going to see actual footage of them flying in these planes. And, to me, I don't know if everybody's seen the trailer or not, but at the end of the trailer, it shows Tom Cruise with a camera right in front of his face inside the cockpit, and he's taking off from an aircraft carrier. And for me, that looks amazing. I don't know what the story is, obviously, but
sure.
I love the fact that they're going a little bit further and pushing the envelope of what they're going to film to have access to that for the film itself. So
yeah.
So with sports movies being addressed, one of my ones I was holding back was curious if anybody loves the Junior Goodwill games as much as I do. Team USA going up against Team Iceland.
Quack
Attack is back, Jack.
Quack. Oh, the plane.
Are you talking about Mighty Ducks?
I'm talking about D2, the Mighty Ducks, baby.
Okay. Oh yeah. That's solid.
No, they didn't cash in on Terminator 2 with that at all, did they?
Not at all.
Yeah, because X2 didn't either.
Oh, hey, I'm blaming X too as well. Like,
and I made a mistake earlier when I remember we were talking about T2 opening weekend.
Mhm.
It was Problem Child 2 that opened the same weekend as T2.
Oh, well, that makes it even better and more relevant.
What about Hot Shots Part Duh?
Oh God.
I don't know if I call it better than the first one, but I do really like it. I laugh a lot.
Equally
during it.
dumb.
I need to see both. I need to see both of those again. I haven't watched them in forever.
They do the whole Terminator thing in the finale, and then you've got the whole like I loved you in Wall Street scene.
Yeah, I mean they do the whole Rambo version of Top Gun.
Yep.
So like
Airplane 2.
I've never seen Airplane 2.
Oh God.
So
Karate Kid Part 2.
What's that? Karate Kid 2. Yes.
Oh,
Karate Kid Part 2. Way better than the original,
one.
I think.
Good.
Great one.
I think the
Karate
second
Kid 2
Karate
is
Kid was way
good,
better.
but it's literally the same movie in Okinawa.
Yeah, but it's better done. I will agree with him on this.
But his girlfriend ain't white in the second one.
The first one, they're like, "Hey, you can't kick in the face," and he wins the game by kicking him in the face multiple times. Like that, like, oh, we'll just throw that rule out for Danny. I still love How I Met Your Mother that he was actually the bad guy.
That he was the bad guy. I did enjoy the second one. I just never really thought I'd put it above the first one. But
what about Beverly Hills Cop 2?
Yes, that was way better than the original too.
That was mentioned to me on Facebook today, and I said I was going to look up the plot because I don't remember the plot.
Alphabet Crimes. I think it was funnier. We had more action. Bridget Nielsen.
They're knocking over bread trucks.
Yeah, it's the Alphabet Crimes or whatever, and it's that racing guy at the end or whatever. Eddie was a lot more funny, I thought too. Like, how long does it take to shave them legs? You don't know. He had a lot of one-liners I thought were way better than the first.
I feel like this week I need to go back and revisit both 1 and 2 so that I can have an opinion on that.
I would say Two Towers versus Fellowship of the Ring. Again, I'm one of those people that I am very much a purist, and I like the first one the best out of that series. But Two Towers is a solid movie.
Oh, the battle at the Hymns.
But isn't that the whole book
whatever,
thing
that last battle was awesome.
Yeah, it kind of falls in the book category, but I mean, I do agree with what you're saying.
You said we didn't talk about many cartoon sequels.
We did. I've still got Toy Story 2, The Incredibles 2, Cars 2, How to Train Your Dragon 2, and Shrek 2 as sequels that I thought weren't bad. I love Toy Story 2. Toy Story 2 is far superior to the first one.
2 is good. It's just one of those, like, I got it in my collection, but I don't know if I ever fucking watch it.
Toy Story 2? Oh, that's probably one of my favorite animated movies. I enjoy the opening sequence of being inside the video game and not knowing that you're watching them play a video game. I enjoy you find out how valuable Woody is, and so then you've got that, like, his characters deciding if he wants to leave and be what Buzz Lightyear thinks he is, or try to get back to his friends. Like, his friends are on the mission to save him. I really, really like Toy Story 2.
But, like, at any point, I would say at least, no matter what, no matter how much you love a movie, there's always a point where you just get bored. There's some kind of boring part in the movie. And I just find myself, like, when animated movies, as much as I want to love them, they're really good when they first start, and then you're like 45 minutes into it, and you're just kind of bored, and then, like, it picks back up at the end. Do you know what I'm saying?
I do, but you should put in the Iron Giant, because that never happens.
I'll have to watch that.
It's a nonstop thrill ride.
Because I didn't understand back in the day when you and Devin and all them just loved that movie, and I'm like, it's a fucking cartoon.
Cartoons don't matter, man.
Jason, what did you mention?
I was gonna say you could go with do we consider Split a sequel, or is that like a side note?
Yeah,
I would say it's a sequel. Split, I thought was a good movie for the most part, but then that ending takes it up a complete star and a half for me, for it to like tie into that universe, and I wasn't expecting it.
Yeah.
So
Well, see, and that's kind of where like it's almost like the ending of Split would be like the next chapter of the movie, and when you get to that part of the movie or the next sequel, and you're like, where the fuck is this going? Like, it just turned weird.
That definitely was a movie that I agree. Like, I was watching it, I enjoyed it, I thought it was pretty cool. Like, McAvoy was awesome. I jumped out of my seat when it showed Bruce Willis watching the TV report in the diner. I lost it.
Nice tie-in.
As much fun as much as I liked the movie, that solidified that as I really like that movie.
No matter how much people give M. Night Shyamalan shit, he's really, really good.
When he's on his A game, he is.
Yes,
When
he's
he
writing
phones
the
it
good
in
shit.
like Lady in the Water, he is not.
Well,
I
you guys
personally
you guys
like that
know
movie.
what
That's
it's
the
like
thing.
when you write shit. Come on.
Oh, yeah.
Everyone writes shit.
He wrote Lady in the Water for his kid, and I thought it was actually a pretty good story. Not a great movie, but a good story.
Yeah, nope. That movie gets over, and I'm just like, that was retarded.
I always felt like Casino was a sequel to Goodfellas.
Yeah,
Maybe
that's how it
just
feels.
like
Huh.
and I
Casino's
hate Casino.
excellent movie.
Joe
Shane,
Pesci
you
for
mentioned
life.
one movie I'm really shocked you didn't mention yet was American Pie 2.
Yeah.
Oh, duh, yes.
Oh,
good call,
yeah.
yes. American Pie 2 is one where I will say American Pie, the first one, is a better movie. I personally really enjoy the second one. I liked the fact that they didn't just do another year at high school or move it to their first year at college. They literally just jumped to these characters are a year later. They've already had college experiences. Let's bring them back together for their summer so that because it would be dumb if you had 6 main characters all go to the same college. So
Right.
instead, they skipped that. They said they all went to different colleges. Now they're coming back together a year later to compare college life and to, Kevin's main mission in that whole movie is to regain his version of their friendship from the first movie. And that almost is second to last scene when they're just out on the beach and he's like, I was just trying to spend this summer like we spent the last 4 years hanging out. And then everybody's like, I mean, that's cool, but like we all have to grow up, but we can still be friends. It's like I felt like it was a very good sequel that didn't just rely on carbon copying because I mean they literally turned it out a year later, I believe. So to turn something around that quickly, maybe it was 2 years, and not carbon copy yourself, I was very impressed.
All
That's
right, so
my soliloquy about that.
I'm gonna bring up some movies that just never needed sequels.
Oh, let's do it.
All right, so I've got Taken.
Yep.
Oh,
Never
God.
needed
Yeah.
one.
Needed
It's
any
just bad
sequel.
parenting.
Yep.
$5 bin. I got all three.
Yep. I'm sorry.
I'm not shocked, Jaybird. I am not shocked. Olympus Has Fallen.
Oh.
Really enjoy the first one. It's so
$5
silly.
bin Walmart. I got
So
the first
silly.
two.
So-
I'll get
so-
the third one. I just watched the third one on Netflix, and I was totally into it. Those movies are so bad they're good.
No, but the first one was actually
The
entertaining.
first
I hated
one
the
was
second.
good.
London Has Fallen sucked,
Yep.
but it's part of the trilogy, and it was in the $5 bin.
All right, what else you got?
Oh man, where was it? I personally didn't like any of the Shreks after the first one, so
Okay.
I'm gonna leave that there.
Yep.
I really liked the first Jack Reacher. The second Jack Reacher felt like a TV movie.
I'll give
Like
you that.
I didn't
Mhm.
dig it.
Still
Even
liked
though
it.
what's really weird is that the writer director guy, Christopher McQuarrie, like or if that's how you say his name, he's doing a bunch of he did the last Mission Impossible,
Yep.
and I won't say I really liked Ghost Protocol and the other one, and I really enjoyed Fallout. Was one of my favorite of that year. So I would go with those, and then why you ever had to make a Psycho 2 is something that's
Yeah.
so beyond me. And I actually
same with American
Night at the
Psycho.
Museum.
Oh,
Yeah.
God.
That's something I'm planning on showing to my kids sometime soon. But I have no idea why they ever made sequels to that or Rush Hour and Shanghai Noon.
What was the last one?
Jason, I apologize. I was talking over you. I didn't hear what movie you were just talking about.
The other two that I thought of were both Jackie Chan movies, but Shanghai Noon and Rush Hour never needed sequels to those.
Okay, what was the one right before that everybody agreed with you?
Oh, was which one? Night at the Museum.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Yeah. Yep. I've only ever seen the first one of that, so I did not fall into the sequels on that.
I don't have kids. I don't fall into that family shit.
Dave, you got some other sequels on your mind?
You know, in the horror genre there, Nightmare on Elm Street, I felt the first one dragged. It really dragged at parts. I thought 2 ramped it up, and I thought it was a superior movie.
3 is Dream Warriors. What was 2? I can't remember. 3 was Dream Warrior. Who was 2?
2 was he's trying to take over the kid's body.
It was just the second one.
House.
I think it's called Nightmare on Elm Street 2.
Okay.
Dream Warrior, Child.
So yeah,
yeah, that was that. But movies.
There's something I just read the other day where Robert Englund is wanting to redo part 2 and just pick up from the first one. It's years later because part 2 was panned so badly and did so badly that he wants to kind of just pick up from the original Nightmare.
Retcon it all.
Yeah, like the Halloween.
Well, and that's totally interesting too, because I feel like after 3, they just decided we're going to make comedies from now on, because they threw in a lot of comedy in the third one and it played fine, but then it was like from 4 on until New Nightmare, they were just like, we're going to make these comedies.
But they all went that way.
Yeah.
Happy Halloween, motherfucker. Right?
Yeah.
From that one in the house to even Friday the 13th, it was so over the top when he goes and takes Manhattan.
True.
They all took that turn. Like, we can't keep doing the same thing. So they all thought it would be, we'll throw some comedy in there and get people.
Jump the sharks.
Yeah.
And part 6 had to do the 3D thing where you had to put on the glasses.
I remember I saw that in the theater. Jeez.
Another one at Glendale, 4, 5, 6.
Wow. Freddy's dead, man.
Maybe a sequel that didn't need to be made, Candyman 2. Candyman is one of the best horror movies, hands down, and Candyman 2 was bad.
Candyman 2 and 3 are garbage, but I am looking forward to the new one and how it's supposed to connect to the original.
Yeah.
Scarefest, man. Scarefest.
Yeah, Scarefest, yep.
On the subject of movies that don't need a sequel, and kind of the horror, but they keep threatening to do it, and they've been trying to do it, but thank God the universe won't let them do it. The Crow. They've been circling around.
There's been 2 Crow sequels.
They were like direct to.
They were direct to video.
Oh, okay. I want to say like Edward Furlong and everything.
Yeah.
I guess maybe they're just talking about reboot.
They're talking about rebooting The Crow, which is going to be stupid.
They had Jason Momoa attached forever.
The Crow is a movie that is pure perfection that does not need a sequel of any kind. Which brings me to another topic. Hollywood announced this week one of the dumbest things I've ever heard of in my entire life. Why you would take a perfect film about a cop wrongfully frozen and unfrozen in the future because he has to fight a psychopath named Simon Phoenix who dies at the end of the movie. Why you think you need to make a sequel 27 years later?
Hey, man.
Nice.
What movie
you got to explain 3 seashells to the next generation, man.
Oh my God, there's no reason that Demolition Man is a perfect action movie from start to finish that tells its story and doesn't need a sequel. I don't want to watch 90-year-old Sylvester Stallone. What did you just say, Jaybird?
Sorry. Keep going.
Steel 2.
Steel 2? Oh. But yeah.
When Shaquille O'Neal was playing for the Lakers and they were playing the Indiana Pacers, they came to Clearwater multiple times while they were in the finals together. And at one point in time, he turned down somebody that we all know from getting an autograph. And so his response when Shaq was leaving the theater that night was, "Hey Shaq, Steel 2. Steel 2.
Oh, God.
Wow. Shoot your shot.
Movie that we don't need a
No.
sequel to.
Oh, wow. But yes,
What a-
Demolition
Talk
Man
about
is a
Demolition
perfect
Man,
action
What's up?
movie in its own.
Oh yeah, I was just saying, Demolition Man, perfect action movie, absolutely does not need a sequel. It's going to ruin the first film, in my opinion. Wardo, is there any sequels that I have forgotten in your opinion?
Never needed to be made.
Uh-huh.
I will just say this and leave it here. Blues Brothers 2000.
Oh yeah. Yep.
The Blues Brothers is my favorite movie.
I really
it's
forgot
the
that
one.
movie existed.
That's the one movie. Like, if I had to sit there and just watch it on repeat, I'm totally cool with it. Great music, great
Yep.
car scenes,
Yep.
story of redemption.
Yep.
It's set in Chicago. It's got Wrigley Field. It's just the perfect movie.
Yes.
To me.
I agree.
And they
That movie
cocked
was
it all
terrible.
up beyond.
Did someone say Blues Brothers 2000?
Yes.
Yes.
Jason, you got it in the Walmart bin. We know you did.
No, I don't have that one.
I've never walked out in a movie before until then. I couldn't do it. I
Yeah.
was just God.
That
It
movie
was
is not good.
God awful.
Yeah, that was bad.
And I'm good. Thank you.
The very last one that I have written down that I was saving for last because, well, no, I have the original poster up there, is Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey.
Oh,
Is absolute garbage compared
Yeah.
to how perfect that first movie was.
Yep.
I still watch it as like a guilty pleasure movie, like,
Station.
but there's like, why did we have to bring aliens into it and God into it and the devil into it and death into it, and like, it's not even about time travel anymore. It's literally about going to different planes of existence, and I like I there are moments in it that I like. I enjoy the robot Bill and Ted. I think they're funny. But overall, that really did not need to be made. If they were gonna make a sequel, like, why wasn't it a time travel sequel? Like, why wasn't there something else in the universe that they had to go fix?
Bill and Ted?
Yes, Bill and
Yes.
Ted.
$5.
I will say that I've shown Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure to my children
Yep.
probably 2 years ago. Both of the kids thought it was hilarious. Both of the boys, older boys, and I kind of like the Matrix. If I ever show them the Matrix, I'm just gonna act like the others just do not exist.
And I don't blame you for that. Oh my God.
holy
So-
crap! That's
So I
horrible.
just had to pack a lot of my movies because I just got divorced last week. So I had to pack all my movies in boxes. But I've got 4 boxes here, and then I've got a bunch that I threw the boxes away, but I have in like big folder things, the disc.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah. But I kid you not, I got so much shit I haven't even opened, man. Look, I got the Guardian. I love that. Yeah,
what?
so- the Guardian with Kevin Costner.
Oh,
Ashton
I never
Kutcher,
saw it.
Kevin Costner.
But here's some old school one for you. See, I got your Back to the Future trilogy, Shane.
All right, I like it. Toy Story.
Girls Pretty Fever Pitch.
I'm waiting for
Fever
sequels
Pitch.
I was
here.
gonna say, yeah, I'm not seeing very many sequels in there yet.
Naked
Yeah,
Gun.
the
Naked
Gun
Gun
trilogy.
trilogy.
Coming to America. Don't need a
Yes,
sequel.
don't need a
They're
sequel.
making a
Coming to
sequel.
America.
Why?
Look, I got, let's check this out. I got Good Burger, Rush Hour 1 and 2. See, I told you I got Rush Hour 1 and 2 at the Walmart $5 bin. Grumpy Old Men 1 and 2, $5.
For your old man.
The 3 Amigos. I got Silver Bullet, $5
I was gonna
bin.
say they're gonna make a sequel to Three Amigos called Four Amigos.
And here's one for my 80s peeps. Secret of My Success.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Oh,
As Bitches
jeez.
in Babysitting.
Also not sequels.
I know. But but the reason why I did that was because I wasn't bullshitting about the $5 bin.
Sure. Well, actually, and we've just, you reminded me of another great trilogy. I'm sorry, another great first movie that somehow got a trilogy made out of it, and that's Ocean's 11. Never needed a sequel to Ocean's 11. Never needed a third movie to Ocean's 11. Ocean's 11
The
is a
third's better
film
than
by
the
itself.
second, man.
What's that?
The third's better than the second one.
Well, and that's because the first movie was such a huge success that Warner Brothers said, next Christmas you're going to release Ocean's 12, and they were like, you're giving us less than a year to make a movie? They're like, yeah, we have this other script that we've already secured the rights to. You're just going to change all the names in this script to the characters from Ocean's 11, and you're going to go film it. Which is why the second movie doesn't even feel like it's an Ocean's movie.
I'll tell you what, I only own the first one. I couldn't do the other two.
No, they're terrible.
It's 2 hours of Brad Pitt eating, but that's cool.
What about Vacation and European Vacation? Because some people, they love them some European Vacation.
That was funny.
I got him.
I don't know which one I like better.
I like the first one better, but the second one's solid.
European Vacation it's so bad it's good. It just is.
That first one was really good, though.
That first one is really good, though.
But Christmas Vacation almost tops the original Vacation.
It tops them all.
Porky's and Porky's 2.
Porky's 2.
Emmanuel 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Oh boy! Now we're on Skinamax.
Yeah, we're gonna put it in a whole new door.
If anyone gets or sees or knows where I can get a Porky's Revenge, I just don't want to pay $30 for it on Amazon. That's the only one I don't have.
I will keep that in mind.
Because they're good.
Oh, no,
All right. We're coming up on 2 hours. We've talked a lot. I think we've covered a lot of great things. The last thing I'm going to ask each one of you is, it can be a movie we've already talked about. I literally just want to know your favorite sequel of all time. Dave.
Can we give our worst one too?
Sure. Yeah.
All right. My best one, I think Alien. I think it's just such a solid movie. Worst one, or the one that breaks my heart every time, is the second Matrix movie. Because the first Matrix, I think, my favorite movie of all time, and sequel that didn't need to be made.
Agreed. Snow.
I mean, yeah, it's almost, you got to think about it. I can agree with The Matrix. That's probably one of the worst sequel movies ever.
Never needed to be made.
Yeah, as far as best sequel, I mean, just because we just talked about it, probably X2. That Nightcrawler scene kind of changed the whole comic book game for me right there. It was epic.
Great.
Epic
Jason
opening.
Maier.
That it's really, really tough. I will totally. I'm such a James Cameron boy. It's probably Aliens or X2. Honestly, is my favorite sequel.
Nice.
Worst sequel for me is that Matrix 2 sequel right there. But I'd also say
3 for 3, baby.
Taken 2 was really, really bad.
Which one?
Taken 2.
Yeah.
Made no sense.
Jason Richardson, favorite sequel, worst sequel ever.
I'd probably have to go with, like what Dave said, Aliens.
Yep.
And then worst sequel,
Grease 2?
No, that's probably one of my favorites. I don't know.
22 Jump Street.
Probably like I don't know, Leprechaun 2.
Oh, okay. definitely one we didn't touch on tonight.
Wow.
But you know what? I really
didn't touch on
like
it.
for sequel, Leprechaun 2 in the Hood, Part 2 in the Hood is really.
Wow. And Wardo.
But guess what? Guess what?
You got
Last
the $5
December,
bin.
I got all 7 of them in the $5 bin. All 7.
You just go get drunk and go to Walmart.
And that was so real quick here.
Do it.
So my 2 best friends, Jenny and Chris, we can do a gift exchange each year. And so I just, for the last 5 years, have just kind of, thrown in a really bad movie this past Christmas copies of all the Leprechaun movies 1 through 7, and they were all for $5.
Wow.
The total $5 for all 7 of them.
That's insane.
That's a win.
That's a win.
To some people, maybe.
I think it's overpriced.
Wardo, best and worst.
So what's 7 movies divided by $5?
Wardo, best and worst sequel, sir.
Well, I've already stated worst sequel pretty emphatically for me.
Blues Brothers 2000 is terrible.
Yeah. Ruined my favorite movie ever. Best sequel, I would have to say The Dark Knight. Just for me, it's just an excellent movie.
Yes, sir. Well, thank you all, you guys, for joining me tonight. I really appreciate you guys and all your thoughts and opinions. We've now go ahead. Yep. What's up?
What about you? Best and worst.
Best all-time sequel. I would probably have to go with. I really think The Dark Knight 2 is probably the best sequel I've ever seen. And then I'm with everybody else that The Matrix 2 is the movie that never should have ever been made or touched, because the first one is perfect. And the next time we do this episode, I'll probably say that the Demolition Man sequel was the worst sequel I've ever seen. So thank you guys for all your thoughts and opinions tonight. I really appreciate it. Next week, episode 3 is apparently going to be called the $5 Bin, and I'm just going to call Jason about all the crap he's gotten for $5. But no, actually,
or the Leprechaun movies that he got for like
for 5.
49 cents a piece or whatever it was.
Exactly.
It was $1. It's $1.70. I did the math for him.
That can't be $1.70. That doesn't work out.
$1.40. Sorry, $1.40.
So anyway, next week's actual episode 3, is going to be called Trilogies. We are going to take all 3 movies in a trilogy and judge the trilogy. So even though things like The Matrix that have a great first movie, it's not going to hold up when you got to take in 2 and 3 into account. So
that means we got to talk about Austin Powers again.
We got to talk about Austin Powers again.
If you want to.
So thank you guys for listening. I appreciate everybody's time tonight. I had a great conversation. Again, we went twice as long as I wanted these to be, so it's a fun time. Thank you guys for listening. Thank you guys for being a part of it.
All right, thank you.
Later, guys. Everybody have a good night.
Thanks, Shane.